Hey, Motorman here. This is our class from yesterday. That would be February 21st, 2021. And temperature's about 75, 80 degrees. But I wanted to show you this. We have a wide variety of motorcycles. This isn't just for Harleys. If a bike has two wheels, one in the front, one in the back, these techniques are going to work. At this class, we had Harley Davidsons. We had Kawasaki Concours, a Suzuki V-Strom, Goldwing, you name it. The techniques work for every motorcycle. And I'm going to go over the mistakes you're likely to make in the same situation. Now, this is the first exercise. It's the slow cone weave, and it goes into a huge turning area. You might call it a circle or a U-turn, probably about 35 feet. Watch this rider. He's missing the green cone to his right. I tell the riders to focus on that cone. He misses it by 10 feet. But because we have so much extra room for error, he's still able to make it. And this despite the fact that he kept the bike as upright as possible. That is a very common mistake. The idea is to use all the room you have available because it makes things easier. So sometimes the riders will make it harder on themselves. Now, this rider is going a little bit too slow. He's doing okay, but watch him miss that green cone again. That probably 10 or 12 feet, but he still makes the turn because, as I said, there's plenty of room for error. Now, this rider is a fairly new rider. He's on the Kawasaki 650 easy bike to handle. He took direction very well, gets right to the green cone, turns his head and eyes using the friction zone, allowing the bike to lean and doing very well. Now, the rider coming up now, he's just barreling right through the cones. He's trying his best not to let that bike dip from side to side, and he's going way too fast for his skill level. He, of course, winds up knocking over cones. But he is able to make the turn, and he doesn't have a high fear level as far as leaning the motorcycle. This next rider you're going to see coming up had what we call high anxiety. He was extremely nervous. And when you're nervous and tense, well, it doesn't help you. It actually hurts you. And I don't think I should have mentioned to him that I had $1 million life insurance policy on my wife, as you see here. Yeah, he tried to nail her. No, actually, that was simply because didn't have his head and eyes up. He went out of the friction zone, and the bike is almost out of control. And this rider is going too fast for his skill level. He's able to make this turn, but he's actually leaning the bike too far. And that is a rare occurrence when somebody does that. It has its good points and its bad points. Again, the Goldwing rider misses the green cone, trying to keep the bike as straight up as possible. But he makes it through because there's, as I said, plenty of room for error. This rider is starting to get the hang of it, gets closer to the green cone. He needed to get just a bit more aggressive. Riding timidly through the course is very common. This rider on the Kawasaki, he misses that by 12 feet trying to keep the bike straight up. Barely makes that turn, even though that bike can turn at about 14 feet. He was having trouble at 30 feet. This next rider is doing very well, except his revs were a bit too high. He was revving the motor to about 2,500 to 3,000 RPM. I explained that to him, and he immediately cut his revs down, which helped quite a bit. Now watch this rider. He inexplicably hits the front brake with the handlebars turned at low speeds. And as you see, down goes the motorcycle. Don't ever do that, folks. If you're going to hit that front brake, the handlebars better be pointed straight ahead. Let this be a lesson to everybody out there who tries that. If your bike has ever gone down so fast you didn't know what happened, I can almost guarantee it's because you hit the front brake with the handlebars turned. It will pull you to the ground like a magnet. Here's another common mistake, and I'm going to show you this in slow motion. The rider has the clutch fully engaged. Instead of being in the friction zone, he's got the clutch all the way out. It's at idle speed, but it's going much too fast for him to turn the bars back and forth quick enough to make it through the weave. Then instead of heading towards that green cone, he looks straight. The bike goes where you look, he looks straight and goes straight. The very last second, he tried to turn his head, but it was too late to make that turn. Here's another slow motion. And this rider on the V-Strom, as soon as his motorcycle starts to lean, he turns the handlebars the opposite direction to prevent the bike from leaning. That's also very common. Instead of turning his head and looking over his left shoulder, The bike starts to lean, he straightens the bars, looks straight, and goes straight. The motorcycle will go wherever you look. If you don't turn your head and you're afraid to lean your motorcycle, you cannot make low-speed turns. This exercise, head and eyes, is extremely important. You got to turn your head and look where you want to go. And you got to allow the motorcycle to lean. Watch this rider. He's afraid to turn his head. He's afraid to lean the motorcycle. He looks straight, and of course, he can't complete the exercise. That's extremely common. Fighting the lean of the motorcycle, but the bike turns by leaning. If you don't allow the motorcycle to lean, you can't make the turns. This rider has no fear of leaning his motorcycle. In fact, he tends to lean a little too far, so he at times almost levers a tire off the ground. That is an unusual mistake. That is very, very rare. I can't even remember the last time someone was doing that.
Go.
Now this rider on the V-Strom, again, he's afraid to lean the motorcycle. This despite the fact that he has crash bars front and rear that give complete protection to the motorcycle. But notice he's trying to keep that bike as straight up as possible. He can't make it through the gate because he doesn't turn his head and eyes. If you don't look where you want to go, long before you get to the place you want to make the turn, you're not going to make it. That is an extremely maneuverable motorcycle, but he's not taking advantage. He's fighting the lean all the way. That's a very common mistake. Got to allow that bike to lean. At times I find it helps to get on a rider's motorcycle when they're having a lot of problems and show them what it should look like and that their motorcycle is capable of these maneuvers that we see here in the video. So I'm not being too aggressive here, but I'm just letting the bike lean, turning my head and eyes, and looking where I want to put that front tire. This sometimes works for riders. It sometimes allows them to get more aggressive when they see that the bike is capable, and sometimes it doesn't work. Here I'm telling them, I've now showed the motorcycle what to do. All you have to do is give it the correct commands. Let's see if it works. Unfortunately, it really didn't work. Watch him try to make this turn. He was nowhere near the green cone, so there's no possible way he could make that turn. Now he does the same thing again. Instead of getting near the green cone to his right, he's somewhere in the middle of the exercise. Looks straight, goes straight. Fighting the lean the entire way. This is very common. Got to lean that motorcycle. Again, he misses that green cone, as you saw, by 9 feet. There's no way for him to make that turn. Of the 9 riders we had in the class, 3 of them had serious problems, even by this point, which is about 2.5 hours into the class. This rider, very similar, not turning his head and eyes, looking straight when he should be turning and looking over his shoulder, fighting the lean of the motorcycle, all common mistakes. This rider as well. He gets near the green cone, but his head kept turning back and forth, left and right, right and left, and that makes the turn wide because you got to turn that head and keep it turned until the turn is completed. Again, here, he misses the green cone by like 10 feet. There's no way for him to make the turn within the allotted space. Now this rider, fairly new rider, but he's on a 650cc motorcycle, much easier to ride, and he has no problem with the exercises. So the 3 riders that were having a problem, what I did was I had one of my instructors take them aside, those 3 riders, and work specifically on U-turns. Little by little, we were able to get them down to 27 feet, which is not bad. Our goal is 24 feet, but because they're having such a problem turning the head and eyes and have such a high fear leaning the motorcycle, 27 feet is pretty good. Are they hopeless? No way. They weren't quitting. They were ready to go. I suggested to them to practice on their own and come back another time after, say, a month's worth of practice, 2 or 3 days a week, and I'm sure they'll make it through the course without a problem. So the moral of the story is it's much easier to learn to ride on a smaller bike than it is a larger bike. Till next time, this is Motorman signing out. Hope you enjoyed this. And don't make these same mistakes. If you do, you got to get out there and practice. Now, don't forget to subscribe, click that notification bell, and I'll see you next time.